Good evening again, everyone, and welcome to Bay TV Prime. I'm Pete Wilson. Harry Wu is a 20-year-old college student in China in 1957. He speaks his mind on the Soviet invasion of Hungary. His country doesn't like it. He is almost immediately sentenced to life in prison. A poisonous weed, they call him in their special way. Before it's over, his mother commits suicide, his father and brother are executed. He is finally released in 1979, 19 years later. He comes to the U.S., but now Harry Wu is an activist, returning again and again to his homeland to document civil rights abuses. This year, the Chinese government has had enough. It arrests and jails Harry Wu again, but this time he becomes a cause célèbre. The world demands his release this time. The climax of his short incarceration, an incident so transparent, you wonder how it made sense even to the Chinese government. Here's Vic Lee.
On July 8, 1995, Wu Da, an American, was arrested.
This is the tape of Harry Wu's purported confession released by China's official news agency, Xinhua. It shows Wu looking gaunt and drained, slouched in an armchair in a small room with 4 interrogators.
He looked terrible. He looked terrible.
This was a sad reaction of Wu's wife, Qing Li, when she saw him on the video.
He was questioned for maybe already a long time. So he looked very tired and very thin. I think he must have lost at least 10 pounds.
In the video, Wu is asked repeatedly about 2 documentaries he made for the BBC on forced prison labor and organ transplants from executed prisoners. In the following exchange, Wu concedes the BBC made some errors in editing the reports. Who edited the commentary? BBC. Any foundation? I've said he is wrong. But Wu's wife, Qing Li, says the editing errors were no secret. Her husband had pointed them out to colleagues when he viewed the BBC documentaries last year. Nowhere on the video, she says, did Wu retract the main points of his reports.
He will not confess anything because there's nothing for him to confess. Harry worked very hard to make sure that all the information he made is accurate.
Wu does admit he concealed his identity and that hidden cameras were used in making the reports. But that information was made public in the documentaries themselves.
They know what Harry has done is correct. And that's why they want to discredit him.
Qing Li Wu says her husband is strong and that he will not crack easily.
Harry Wu is our guest tonight on Bay TV Prime. It's a great pleasure to meet you and to get a chance to talk to you. Your extraordinary courage the last few months, I think, is an example to an awful lot of Americans, to an awful lot of people around the world. You may be aware now, though you weren't during that time in prison, just how much of a fuss was being made on your behalf.
I was totally isolated in 66 days. You know, the first time I realized so many people are concerned with me, helping me, is I just stepped out from Air China. I don't know that people is waiting for me. Suppose I have to rent a car, drive myself to home.
Right.
I suddenly, all the people around here with the yellow ribbon, and my family, and all the people was yelling to me. It's a wonderful time.
I bet that was. Are you feeling better now? Have you acclimated yourself back here now? We look at those tapes taken in that interrogation session, and you didn't look good there. Obviously, your wife was very concerned.
Oh yes. So, when I'm back home, I look at the tape. I was very surprised because most of the time I keep myself in very good health condition. I doesn't look very bad. And then later I look in my diary. You know, in my diary I write in secretly in the margin in the dictionary. I found out the date. Just 2 days later, the Chinese give me some herbal medicine. I asked about some medicine for my back. They said, no, we only can give you some our own medicine. It's Chinese herbal medicine. I don't know what is it. And I used the medicine. After 2 days, my nose bleeding. And my red eyes and my right eyes totally is black. Popped blood vessel.
Right.
And I cannot see it. That's right.
What was this experience like? Obviously, this was not similar to the 19 years you spent in prison in the late 50s. They were being relatively careful with you this time, were they not?
Oh, yeah, you are using very good word, careful, yes. I was at the border June 19. They right away checked me out from the computer. They caught me.
They
the secret
used
police.
Western computers and so on.
Oh, yes.
In order to find.
And last year they don't have the computer.
didn't have it,
And
yeah.
this time they have the computer. So, oh, now you're coming now. So, from June 19 until July 8th, 22 days, I was escorted by the secret police, travel around. Nobody know about me, where it is. Okay. And I never be in the jail. These very special places. They call this a health recovery center. It's actually is a lakeside villa, and I'm only guest in this hotel, surrounded by 40 or 50 policemen, secret police.
Jail is jail, regardless of what the surroundings are. You knew you were in
Oh,
jail.
this is a hotel.
Right. Yeah.
Have air condition. Have a bathroom.
Right.
Okay.
That's the difference.
I'm the only
difference, right?
only guest over there. Okay.
At that point,
All right.
and there's a lot to talk about here, but at that point, did you have any notion what they wanted to do, where they intended to go with this, and why they had chosen now to arrest you? They knew perfectly well that the rest of the world knew you were there.
They told me that we are waiting for you a long time, and we know that sooner or later you will come back. Okay. So we have all your files, we make an investigation, find out all the places you have been, we have all the witness. Let me tell you, don't thinking like you are American citizen, you are protected by American government. We can charge you simply. We just pick a few items from your crime. That's enough for we decided sentence you like this.
Right. There are still a lot of people wondering why you would go back repeatedly, knowing that that system, that government, doesn't operate in quite the way this place does. You certainly knew that. And that it would be, if they really chose to find you, fairly easy for them to do it. Why you would take that kind of chance?
First of all, this time I went to China as under legal passport and valid visa.
Right.
So that's why the Chinese say, why you come back? I say, you give me the visa. I mean, you welcome me back. Okay, there's no reason you charge me. If you think I'm a criminal, you can ask American government deliver me. Okay, you didn't play a fair game, right?
Right.
I have to tell you, I never can turn my back to my motherland, to my former inmates, to my old parents, my old brothers. I cannot forget about these people.
Right.
Okay.
And thank God that you can't do that. But the question still remains. Harry Wu is sticking his neck out, and the Chinese government can say at almost any time, now we choose to stop him. We know what he looks like and where he goes. We know the kinds of difficulties he causes us. There had to be a limit, though, to what they could do with you. They had to know that the West would react.
I think at the beginning, there's underestimated the Western country reacted.
You do.
So that's why they say, yeah, we know that if we sentence you something, could be a big problem.
But they told you
But there's
no
a
reaction
temper.
at all, right? They told you that there was no reaction. People were not paying any attention that you were gone. They didn't even know you were gone.
Yes, that's right. The first time I say, every day I protest. I'm an American citizen. I have the right to contact my consulate. She said, forget it, okay? And she said, do you know that Singapore government whipped American youth? American government protest? Nothing. We are stronger, powerful than the Singapore government. We can do everything we want. And she said, you know, we defeated American imperialists in Korea, in Vietnam. We can do everything we want. For you, only one way, cooperate with us. We inform your embassy, no reform, no any response. Okay? And yeah, we know if we sentence to something, could become a problem, international problem. But this is temporary. Looking for long term, we like to do it because you are the one caused so many trouble to our Chinese government.
Well, we are going to continue our talk with Harry Wu tonight. We have a number of very interesting pictures, the kinds of things he brought back that the Chinese government decided was a crime against the government. We're also going to talk about the implications of the U.S. involvement there, precisely what direction we have, what policy we have, and what Harry thinks we ought to be doing. Ought to be an interesting hour. 1-800-94-BAY-TV if you have a question or a comment. Stay with us. Our guest tonight is Chinese social activist Harry Wu. Of course, he is back now and in much better shape, and I think somewhat surprised at the reaction that has actually occurred here in the United States. But we have much to talk about. Have a bunch of pictures that you brought along. I want to take you back, if I can, to a time of your life which this was much more difficult even than this last few months, and that was 1957. Mao and Deng have launched the 100 Flower Bloom movement, which was basically what they were going around was weeding out the middle class and the upper middle class by asking them what they thought of things. And when you expressed yourself,
and then
bang.
Yeah.
How did it happen precisely to you?
First of all, my background is a so-called bourgeois class. And also I'm a Catholic, so that's enough for Chinese to take me away.
Right.
And then I spoke something against the communist government and then sentenced to life.
Right.
And this is the first camp I was there. That's why in 1991, the CBS 60 Minutes, we take a first trip back over there. This is 5A3 section of Qingho Farm. I'm almost died over there in the starvation. My weight only have 72 pounds.
Okay, now if we can get a shot of this prison and set that up as we're talking here. Here's, in fact, people may remember Ed Bradley taking you back there from 60 Minutes. You came that close. They simply did not care at that point what happened to the to that particular class of Chinese citizens. Yet somehow you survived that, as many people didn't. And what happened in the process between 1979 when they released you and 84, 85 when you finally got?
I have to be honest with you. Okay, I'm not a hero. Okay, in this camp, I almost died. Okay, back in 1991, I hidden over here, take a picture, and behind that building, there's a piece of land we call 586, a graveyard. My many friends almost died over there. They never come up. They can never come to you. These nameless, faceless people, nobody know how many are there. Okay, I survived because I always think in myself like a beast. If you like a beast, beast never thinking about love, sex, future, dignity, freedom, and easy to survive in Chinese gulag.
When we call you a hero, or when you hear that word, it doesn't refer to this period of time, because this is a period of time over which you had no control. You were simply there for those 19 years, trying to survive as best you could. The heroic part of it, you know perfectly well, comes from the notion that you have continued to try to uncover civil rights violations in these prison camps. The notion that the Chinese are using these camps as slave labor camps in order to make products which sell in the West and all over the world, basically came from you and a couple of other people, did it not?
Yes, many people actually behind me, supporting me. They told me many different camps location, and they tell me their own experience. Okay, for example, this is located in downtown Shanghai. It's a steel
right
pipe.
in the city,
right in the city. Okay, but you have to know. Okay, Pete, this is evidence in my crime. They charge me.
The fact that you had
This is state
picture,
secret. Yeah, state secret.
That's a state secret.
Yeah.
It's sitting in downtown Shanghai. You walk or ride by this every day. Thousands of Chinese citizens do that. But if you look at it, you're breaking the law.
You have to like this way. Don't look at it. If you look at it, you're observing state secret. This is my charge. This is photo I took it. And then this is evidence. State secret. 15 years sentence.
As far as the Chinese are concerned, did you confess to all of this? Do they have now a record of your confession, and they've established that so that if you go back, they can immediately imprison you again? Is that the notion?
Yes, I did confess. I said, yeah, I've broken the Chinese law. I admit it. I deserve a Chinese punishment. But I've broken the communist law. I be honored to have broken the Chinese communist law.
Why do you think they let you go?
Well,
You
I
had
think
to.
first of all, I didn't know what could happen to me. Because at the beginning they say, well, they're ready to sentence to death.
Right. We've been waiting for you, as you said. Yes.
And then later, something changing. And I realized there's some international pressure.
Certainly.
And they later using me as a bargain chip in doing something like that.
Do you know now, or have a notion now, of what the reason was? Do you think you know now what the kind of pressure was, or what the bargaining chip may have been?
For Mrs. Clinton, for President Clinton.
Right. And that women's conference, perhaps. Right?
Yeah, looking for long-term is also looking for the Jiang Zemin is coming out in October, want to meet President Clinton.
Okay. We'll be back with Harry Wu. Our number is 1-800-94-BAY-TV if you'd like to join us in this extraordinary conversation. There's much more to talk about. We have to apply this all to U.S. policy, among other things. Stay with us. We're back with Harry Wu, talking about his recent experience incarcerated in China, the second time in his life, this time for a much shorter period of time, 66 days. But 66 days, I would imagine, filled with anxiety, perhaps a sense of not knowing precisely what was going to happen and whether you were ever going to get back here.
Nobody told me, or I totally isolated. Only have two chances to interview the American consulate, and not allowed to talk about my case, everything. My wife letter not allowed to give it to me.
Yeah.
And they took me away, all my belongings, including wedding ring, everything.
For what reason? Only the Chinese know. Let's look at a couple of these other pictures here. These are the kinds of things, folks, in case you have not heard this story in a number of news magazines covered by most American newspapers and newspapers around the country, of the kinds of things that Harry Wu was looking for in his trips back there. This is inside a Chinese prison camp.
Oh, yes. This I took in 1994 trip. A number of the prisoners in labor in the construction work. All the prisoners in China, whatever, you're petty thief or political prisoners, forced to labor. According to Chinese government regulation, you know, how you become a criminal, because you have so many bourgeois idea. So we sent him 5 years, 10 years, not only, but only a punishment, we also want to help you, force you in the hard labor, slave labor, become a new socialist person.
Are these idea prisoners, that is, idea criminals, or are some of these folks thieves, murderers, perhaps?
Perhaps, perhaps some of this murder or rapist, we don't know.
Right.
But they're human beings.
But forced labor is forced labor.
Yeah, and
this,
also forced to brainwashing, so-called thought reform.
do you believe, from what you've seen, that conditions in these camps are better now than they were when you were there in the late 50s?
I think it's better than when I was there. Okay.
For whatever that means, they're still in prison. Yes.
Yeah, they're still in prison.
Right.
When they live, forced to labor, big profit to the government. When they die, Chinese can extract the organ for organ transplantation, even sell it to foreign patients.
That idea first came from your group of people, the notion of selling organs when these prisoners die. There are other things that they do. They, in fact, manufacture things which are sold in other countries. Is that correct?
Yes. For example, Chinese government documents say 1/3 of the tea is come from, 1/3 of the national output is come from prison. China is the largest tea producer in the world.
Here's another shot from inside. It's amazing to me that you would get these shots. I mean, how did you get close enough to take these shots?
Some of them I pose as a businessman, some I pose as a tourist, and sometimes take a shot, I dress as a policeman.
And you know what's surprising about this, don't you? Most Americans think that this is such a tight, totalitarian system that you could never get away with something like that. They'd know precisely where you are and where at virtually any time if you were a foreigner coming into that country. But it isn't quite that way, or at least it wasn't until recently, was it?
you have to know, they knew me very well.
Yeah.
But I also knew them very well. I always say, if they only can stop me or find me on the border. If I get in the border, I just like a fish in the ocean.
Most of these folks you do not know. This is a shot right through the window, right?
Yes, this is in number 3 prison in Hubei province. Actually, it's a very large textile factory. I went over there. The information told me is in 1989 is 85 million product actually export. And this person, I don't know. Even I didn't very carefully can see his face.
Let me take a break. I have to take the break for our update. We'll be right back. We have a couple more pictures to show you, but a lot more to talk about. Stay with us. We're back. We're talking to Harry Wu tonight. If you have not heard that name, just a quick summary of what's happened to him in the last 3 months. He was arrested on one of his civil rights activist trips to China, to his homeland, China. Arrested and incarcerated for 66 days before finally being released back to the United States, largely because there was a huge outpouring of concern about him from across this country and across the world. He's back now and talking about that experience and the things that led to that. We were talking before the break, Harry, about the faceless individuals behind those prison bars in the various prisons that you've been concerned about. This is a face that you know perfectly well, right?
Oh, yes. He's a Catholic priest. He's a kind of survivor from Chinese prison camp. He spent 31 years. One reason, he is a Vatican Roman Catholic priest. In 1950s, all the Chinese Catholic priests sent it to the labor camps.
Right.
And the Catholic totally destroyed in 1950s.
What's the point of keeping this man in prison now? What is possibly to be gained from this? It's doubtful that he would come out and be a thorn in their side. Why keep this man and others in prison? What do they gain from that?
The game is that communism doesn't like all kind of religious. Okay, never allowed any kind of religious into China, and these people are really, I want to say, stubborn. So I will not cut out my relation with.
All you have to
I
do
will
is
not
look
give
at that
up.
face, and you know how stubborn he is.
Yeah.
I mean, that smile.
So I would not give up my religious. This is my rights.
Right.
And she told me that he can, if he willing sign the paper, willing cut off the relation with the Vatican, they can release him right away.
Right.
But she said, no, I can't. I can't give him that. So spent 31 years.
America has had a difficult time deciding precisely what to do. China and the Soviet Union, the two great communist enemies of the last 45 or 50 years, in America's way of thinking about it, were different countries and behaved in different ways. The Chinese began to inculcate some capitalism into their system about 15 to 20 years ago, and so are more prosperous than the Soviets were, certainly were at the end of the Soviet Union's reign. What, in your view, is the right way to deal with China now?
First of all, let me back to the history a little bit. I think basically nobody like to see any communist regime exist in our earth. So today the communism is collapsing in Russia, in Soviet, in East Europe, everywhere. But seems the Chinese communism will exist. And we know that Soviet Union never enjoyed most favored nation status because evil communists.
We never gave most favored nation trading status.
President Ronald Reagan say this is evil communist.
Right.
Why Chinese communists enjoyed MFN? Is this angel communist or what? The Western
Is it
country,
because of that capitalism that it appeared for a while that they were moving toward? They'd opened up a couple of cities. They'd begun to do to aggressively.
This is recent. This kind of happening just happened in recent 10 years.
Right.
Okay. Now the other thing is, the Western country boycott South Africa because of human rights abuses. Is Chinese human rights record better than South Africa? So why? The people say, well, we have to do business. This is understandable, do business. But we have to know the profit from the trade for the foreign investment, for the joint venture, going to where? benefit the common people, I agree, but also benefit the communist regime.
What happened to you, and this is a little more subtle, but I know that you hold this theory because you've suggested it already tonight. What happened to you in being arrested and then released may have had to do with outside pressures, as you suggest. A World Women's Conference to be held in Beijing, or just outside, including the possibility that Hillary Clinton would keynote the conference. As it turned out, you were released moments, literally, before Hillary Clinton climbed on an airplane to fly to Beijing. Now, how much do you think that had to do with your release?
I think there's a kind of mutual understanding. Of course, there's no deal about it, but everybody know about it. Okay, I was got the release on August 23rd, and the next day, the White House will make an announcement, Mr. Clinton ain't going. Okay.
Do you think she would have gone had you not been released?
Possible.
You know, we don't know, and they haven't said, but there are a lot of people who don't think she would have gone, that you may have been a key to allowing that. There are those who think that, or at least suggest it.
I think it's a very high pressure from American people, also very high pressure from the Congress. Say, don't go over there because our people, our American citizen was illegally detained over there.
You know, you realize that you were one of the rare bipartisan issues in Congress. I mean, the Republicans were beating the Clintons over the head with Harry Wu, but many Democrats, Nancy Pelosi among others here, who's been very strong on this issue, was just as critical of the administration for suggesting that Hillary Clinton go.
Yes, that's why 2 weeks ago I gave a testimony before the House, and both sides, both parties say, well, Harry Wu, you are the only one can put these two parties strong together.
Right. The Women's Conference is interesting because if you talk to the people who organized that conference, their notion was that if we go to this place, which is still extraordinarily totalitarian in the way that it deals with its people, and they wanted the conference, they begged to have the conference there because it gives them this prestige. If we go, it will help open up China. Do you agree with that? Do you think it was a mistake to have the conference?
Not really. So far as I know, in the high level in Beijing government, they have a very serious argument. The hardliners say, no, we don't want it. Why we want it? And the other side said, we can get a benefit. We can get the credit.
Right, and they
so,
won.
yeah, they very seriously argue each other. But I really want to say, I'm very, very proud. I want to applaud Mrs. Clinton. And I think he really deserved my praise. She is very bravely, I want to quote one sentence, what she said in Beijing. Now it is a time to break the silence of Chinese human rights abuses.
Yeah, this may sound funny to you, but I remember sitting in the newsroom a couple of weeks ago, sort of talking about this, ranting as I usually do in the newsroom. What can I do? What can I say? And saying, I don't understand why many of the women, the very strong leaders that they are, many of the feminist leaders in particular, who are very familiar with politics and certainly understand the manipulation of politics, did not simply say, we're going to do what we want to do in your country, and there is nothing that you will do about it. Because there really was nothing the Chinese government could do once thousands of women from all over the world got inside that
30, 40,000.
Right. There really wasn't anything they could do, was there?
Well, it actually is a very good, also it's a very good chance to show the Chinese women, Chinese men and women. So
Which had to be the most frightening part of it for the Chinese government.
And also these 30, 40,000 people from outside, everybody go over there, stay about a couple of weeks and come back and say, what is the damn country? What is the damn government?
Right, and that's exactly what we're hearing now.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because there were many leftists from around the world who went over there, and maybe their ideas about how things actually work have changed a little bit, but perhaps we shouldn't get into that. We have much more to talk about with Harry Wu. 1-800-94-BAY-TV if you'd like to join us. We'll be right back. We're back with Harry Wu. We have a caller on the line I want to get on right away. Sandra in Pinole, go ahead with your call.
Hi, Harry. This is Sandra Parks. You remember my father, Bill?
Oh, yeah. How about Bill?
Bill is still in and out of the hospital, but he is so very, very happy that you're back and that you're safe.
Sandra, you taught Harry how to drive, right?
Yeah, actually, my parents had a little driving experience with Harry in a station wagon, and it's a very special little memory we have.
And I have an accident, broken your station wagon. I'm sorry
I
about
didn't want to
it.
mention that, Harry, but now that you mention it, we're just really, you were a very special friend of my father, and we haven't been able to get a hold of you for a long time, but we're very, very, very happy that you're all right.
Sandra, it's great that you called tonight. Thank you very much. Because that's partly what I wanted to bring up with Harry now, and that is your experience, your early experience here in this country. You were visiting scholar at Berkeley, 1985, which was pretty tough to live on. So you worked in a
Well,
donut shop.
yes, I would come over here only $40 in my pocket, and actually not many money from the Berkeley, so I have to work in the night shift from 9 p.m. to next morning 6 a.m. in the Pinot and donut shop, making donuts.
Whatever you think about this country, and I know that you have some pretty strong feelings about that, it is difficult not to think of China as your country, is it not, regardless of what happens?
Let me, in August 10, the American General Counsel come to the jail to visit me. I cry. This is the first time I heard that someone care about me. This is the country give me the freedom, it give me my fortune, and when I'm in a difficult situation, they protect me. And the American people is really concerned about me. The yellow ribbons all of the places. So that's why I say I'm proud and honored to become an American citizen.
You know, there were a few people in this country, and I won't say anything more than that, who said this whole business was a very stupid thing for this man to do. Why should we be worried about somebody who does something this dumb? Which bothers me because they forget about the sacrifices people make if they feel strongly about something. Something as important as a lifetime and what happened to your family and what happened to you. How do you respond now that you're back?
If they think I'm a stupid, I'm a crazy, suppose they have to suggest destroy the Holocaust Museum in Washington.
Right.
Why we need it? Holocaust Museum, Holocaust concentration happened in Europe. Doesn't matter with American. Why are we concerned about these things? Spend $168 million and take a 12 years, establish a museum in Washington. Why we care about Chinese prison system? Why should we do that?
I can't think of a better answer than that. Explain for us, and I've heard you talk about this before, the difference in the way you think about your life here and the way you think about, you know, Americans just fuss endlessly about all of our problems and, oh, gee, we've got this and we've got that. And yet, to try to put that in perspective, measured against a totalitarian system now established for almost 50 years, how do you explain it when you get into those conversations?
I always so admire the American people. They really have a very, very good life. Of course, democratic society always have some problem. You have Ronnie King problem. You have O.J. Simpson problem. You have Susan Smith problem.
Right.
But everything could not be very perfect. If you compare with the Chinese system, with the Hitler system, with the Stalin system, and you will say, gosh, I'm really in a very, very wonderful system.
You study, your specialty is, and I have a hard time pronouncing this, Lagoy, which is the notion of the Chinese system, the communist Chinese system, of reforming people through the use of punishment and labor. It's actually a system, a philosophy. At what state is that at now? Has it changed at all? Has it refined itself, or are we basically just in a more, I'd say, a refined version of the Cultural Revolution?
Basically, there's nothing be changed. We call this a Laogai, L-A-O-G-A-I, Laogai. Chinese meaning is labor and reform. All the prisoners, whatever you're PTC, you're a political criminal, you have to force to labor. And only through the hard labor and then through the brainwashing. Brainwashing means give up your religious, give up your political viewpoints and totally change yourself, become a new social person.
And you don't believe that's changed. There are a lot of people in this country who predicted that, that the Chinese communists will begin to change, for that matter, the Soviet communists will begin to change when the old guys die, when all of the old revolutionaries whose whole lives were defined by the revolutions die. That's not happening in China, is it?
China is changing, rapidly change a lot. And China only can change by Chinese. But outside, especially American, Japan, Europe can play a very important role in China. But we have to know, do business with China have two sides.
Right. You believe that business, yes, but that this should be conditional, that the
Business,
rest of the
yes,
world ought
is
to
helping
say,
the common Chinese.
Right.
The Chinese, so many Chinese right now in a foreign country, they will learn the truth. And many foreigners travel in China, do business in China, they really give the Chinese people a very good shock.
Right.
But the other side, we have to know the benefit from the trade also benefit the autocracy. For example, when I was in China 66 days, all the secret police around me, they have cellular phone made by Motorola. They put me in the vehicle, it's made by Audi. Okay? The government have that kind of money. They have the knowledge, the tech knowledge. They can advance their weapon system. That's why today they have the missile can launch into the in Taiwan area.
A real quick yes or no question. A lot of Americans thought during the Tiananmen Square mess that that the Chinese government was very close to collapsing. We believed, or at least deluded ourselves, that somehow this was going to be it.
No, I
this was going to be
disagree.
the change.
I disagree. Tiananmen Square is a very important political and democracy movement, but I don't think the communists can right away collapse. China take a long way to go.
A long time. All right, when we come back, I want to ask Harry whether or not he would return. He's answered this before, but you may not have heard it, and it's quite an answer. We'll be right back. We've been talking to Harry Wu tonight in a fascinating conversation about his experiences of the last 3 months, what he has gone through a little longer than that, and how he's doing now. And the obvious question, I want to spend a little time on this. We just have a few minutes left. Would you go back knowing now that they're...
Well, in China, in the interrogation, I answered the question to the senior police. He said, "Why you come back?" I said, "This is the place I born, and this is the place I prefer to die. My parents' graveyard is over here. My former inmates' graveyard is over here. I'm survivor. I cannot turn my back to them. I cannot betray them. I cannot forget about these people."
They still let you go, but implicit in that answer that you gave the interrogator was, "I'm coming back."
They say, yes, you will come back, but I'm warning you. If you come back, we put in your jail.
Right,
Survey
back in
your
jail.
15 years.
Right.
I have sentence.
What about your wife? What about Xing Li? She has to know that there's this battle inside you, you know, between
I have to
these
be
things.
frank with you. I've really underestimated my wife.
Oh, she was
I
something.
didn't know that her capacity, ability. You know, we met in 1990. The first day we were introduced by someone as I have to be straight. I spent 19 years in Laogai. He said, "What do you mean? What is Laogai?" I tried to explain, I felt, but I said, let's go simple. I spent 19 years in the jail. And he shocked. He said, 19 years? You are former prisoners in front of me? She really don't understand. Okay, but finally he said, I'm very happy I didn't give you up. And I say, I didn't give you up. So that's why when I returned from China, I say, would you marry to me? He said, I'm your wife. I said, no, marry again.
You've just done that.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. Have you seen the videotape of her responses to our questions, to the news questions, and that constant battering on her door, asking her all of this when she had to be going through heck during all of this?
That's why I say I really underestimate.
Yeah, she was very, very strong, and and she is to be, you know, much honored for that as well as this extraordinary trip. You say you're not a hero. You know, Americans and lots of folks, I think the Chinese as well. I mean, I think this is a universal trait. Tend to want to find heroes. They want to have people to look up to. The example that you've given people is a very strong example. There are some things which are more important than our usual considerations of life.
Maybe something over there, but I still want to say, You know, in the interrogation, the senior police say, well, we treat you very differently because you are American citizen. I feel very honored, very proud, because I protected by a very strong government, strong country. But the other side, I feel guilty. I feel very sad. I'm thinking about Wei Jingsheng and Chen Zhiming and Ding Zilin, these Chinese dissidents. They same as me as human beings.
Right.
That's only they don't have an American passport.
They don't have the American there.
These people are the hero, not me.
Just, this is the last question to you. Was there anyone there interrogating you, of those 3 young men, for instance, who were with you virtually the whole time that you were, was there anyone there who you thought might have been listening a little more than the others, paying a little more attention to you, or perhaps looking at you with grudging respect?
Yes. Some young guards, finally in the maybe last 2 or 3 weeks, really differently, look at me very differently, really help. Sometimes I want to say they're helping me, but I cannot talk about these things. They will get the trouble.
They asked you what you were going to do when you got back. I think you referred to those young men, did you not? You said you were going to go and rent 3 young men to stay with you the rest of the
Yeah, because I used to, even I sit on the toilet, they stand beside with me.
Right there.
So I say, well, maybe I have to hire some young men to stay with me.
Well, I can't tell you how much I appreciate you coming in here. I've wanted a chance to talk to you ever since you returned. I am, and I think virtually everyone listening is very happy that you're back here, and we have the lesson of your experience, not just this experience, but the long one as well. Thank you very much, Harry.
Thank you.
All right, and the best of luck to you.
Thank you.
That's it. Tomorrow night is Jan Wall. Jan for Henry is in tomorrow night. That's it. Have a good one.